Two people each get handed $10,000 on the same day. Same amount, down to the dollar. 6 months later, one of them has an extra income stream that didn't exist before. The other one is back to zero and can't fully explain how. It wasn't luck. It wasn't the market. It was one decision made in the first hour that neither of them even noticed they were making. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what that decision was, and more importantly, the one moment later on where almost everyone quietly undoes all their own progress, without it ever feeling like a mistake while it's happening. But we can't skip to that, because the ending only makes sense once you understand the order everything has to happen in. So let's start at the beginning, with the thing almost everyone gets wrong in the very first hour. Here's what happens the day someone gets $10,000 they didn't expect. A bonus, an inheritance, a tax refund, whatever put it there. Within 48 hours, most of it is already earmarked. A stock somebody mentioned. Of course everyone's talking about paying down a card. Something that makes sense fast. That instinct, do something with it immediately, is the first leak. And I promise I'll show you the leak that costs people the most later in this video. But right now, let's deal with the instinct, because it's the one hiding in plain sight. Money that moves fast usually moves badly. Speed and judgment are opposites. They run on different parts of your brain, and they don't take turns nicely. Excitement floods in and evaluation gets quietly shut off, and you don't feel it happen. You just feel confident. So the first thing I'd actually do with $10,000 has nothing to do with spending or investing it at all. I'd sit on it, not out of fear, out of function, for 7 days, completely untouched, while I answered one question. What does this money actually need to become? Not what can I buy with it, what job does it need to do? That answer changes everything downstream, and in the next section, I'll show you exactly how one question splits $10,000 into 3 completely different directions, and why blending those directions together is where most people quietly sabotage themselves before they even start. Most people treat $10,000 like it's one decision. It's not. It's 3 completely different jobs, and the money doesn't know which job it's doing until you assign it. Job 1. Protect you. Job 2. Teach you. Job 3. Multiply for you. Here's the mistake. People make one pile of money, do all 3 jobs at once. They invest their safety net. They learn with money they can't afford to lose. They gamble what should have been a cushion. All 3 jobs fail, not because the person was careless, but because none of the 3 jobs ever got the resources they actually needed to succeed. Picture trying to run 3 departments with one employee who has to guess every morning which department they're working for that day. Nothing gets done well. Not because the employee is incapable, but because divided attention produces divided results. Money behaves exactly the same way. It needs a job description before it gets an assignment. So split it, not evenly, deliberately. The protection pile gets just enough to cover a real, specific gap, not a fantasy emergency that never happens. The learning pile gets an amount small enough that losing it stings, but doesn't wreck you. And the multiplying pile gets whatever's left, only after the other 2 jobs are actually funded, not promised funded. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the split I'm about to walk you through puts almost nothing into the thing you're probably most excited about right now, investing. I know that sounds backwards. In the next section, I'll actually run the numbers on why that's true, and it's not a close call. Before a single dollar goes toward buying an asset, I'd spend some of it buying a skill. Not a broad one, a specific, monetizable one. Copywriting, sales conversations, financial modeling, something that turns hours into dollars at a rate your current job simply doesn't. Let's actually walk through the math instead of just asserting it. $2,000 in the stock market in a solid year might net you something like $200. $2,000 spent getting genuinely good at a sellable skill can add $200 a month to your income for years if you actually apply it. One of those is a return on capital. The other is a new ceiling on your entire earning life. Assets grow the money you already have. Skills grow your capacity to generate more of it in the first place, and only one of those compounds on your effort, not just on your starting balance. Most people invest first because it feels more adult, more responsible, more like something a financially mature person would do. It's actually the slower path, because it requires money to already be doing the heavy lifting before you've built the machine that makes more of it in the first place. Okay, the skill's funded. Step 2 handled. Now here's the part that decides whether this whole plan actually works or quietly collapses the moment it starts succeeding. What you do with your first win. Most people get this exact moment wrong without ever realizing it happened, and I'm going to walk through why in a second. Before we get to that moment, there's a question I skipped, and it matters. How much actually goes into each pile? People want a formula, and I'm not going to pretend there's a universal percentage, because your protection number depends on your actual monthly costs, not a generic rule you saw somewhere. Here's a better way to size it. Ask what a real specific gap would cost you, a job gap, a repair, a health cost you can reasonably predict, and fund that, not more. Anything beyond that real gap, number sitting in a savings account isn't protection anymore. It's just money quietly losing value to inflation while doing nothing. Then ask what amount of loss on the learning pile would sting without derailing your month. Everyone's number is different. The test isn't can I afford to lose this in some absolute sense. It's will losing this make me abandon the skill halfway through. If the number's too big, you'll quit at the first setback. If it's too small, you won't take it seriously enough to actually finish. Whatever's left is the multiplying pile. Not before, not a guess. What's left after the other 2 jobs are actually funded? Now, the moment I promised. The one where a working plan quietly falls apart right after its first success. This is the leak I opened this whole video with, and here's exactly how it operates. Here's something strange that almost nobody talks about. The plan doesn't usually fail at the hard part. It fails right after the first success. You land the skill. It starts paying off. Maybe it's an extra client, a raise, a small investment that ticks up. And right at that moment, not during the struggle, right after the first win, something in you decides you've earned a little slack. A nicer dinner, an upgrade you'd been holding off on. Nothing dramatic, nothing you'd even flag as a mistake in the moment. It feels like a reward. It feels earned, but it comes directly out of the pile that was supposed to keep growing. And here's the part that actually costs you. Growth that compounds doesn't forgive gaps. It doesn't pick up where you left off. A pause resets the clock every time, because the growth you'd see in month 12 depends entirely on the growth that should have already happened back in month 3. This is the 4th leak, the one from the very start of this video. It's not a bad investment. It's not a market crash. It's the reward you give yourself the moment things start working. And it's invisible precisely because it feels like the opposite of a mistake. So how do you actually stop something that doesn't feel like a mistake while you're doing it? Not with willpower, with structure. Here's exactly what that looks like in practice. The fix isn't discipline. Willpower is a weak defense against a decision that doesn't register as a decision at all. You need something that doesn't require you to notice the moment. Here's the structural version. The instant new income shows up, the client payment, the raise, the small gain. It moves before you ever see it sitting in your account. Not after you decide what to do with it. Before. Automatic. Out of sight before it has a chance to feel like extra money. Willpower loses to a paycheck sitting in your checking account every single time, for every single person. No exceptions worth betting on. A rule that removes the choice entirely doesn't have that problem, because there's nothing left to resist in the moment it matters. That one structural change is the entire difference between the person with an extra income stream in 6 months and the person right back at 0, using the exact same starting amount, the exact same opportunity, the exact same skill. So that's the order. Sit on the money for a week and figure out what job it actually needs to do. Split it 3 ways, deliberately, sized to your real numbers, not a percentage you saw online. Buy the skill before you buy the asset, because the skill raises your ceiling and the asset only grows what you already have. And the moment any of it starts paying you back, move that money before you even feel it land, because that's the exact moment the whole plan is quietly designed to fall apart. Same $10,000 as the person who loses it in a year. Completely different outcome. Not luck, sequence.